My fellow Americans,
You might be wondering, why in the world is there a 30-minute countdown before the show starts? Well, we actually start live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, so this whole 30-minute countdown is a chance for YouTube and Rumble to send out their alerts and notifications, so we encourage you to gather up and hang out with everyone in the chat room. So every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time is when we do this show live. You can join us for the countdown if you like, or just set your clock and reminder that at 4 p.m. Eastern is when we go live. You can also make sure you subscribe and turn on that bell notification, so hopefully you will get a notification.
What do you have to say about dictators of countries like Indonesia, who we sell weapons to, yet they are slaughtering people in East Timor? What do you have to say about Israel, who is slaughtering Palestinians, who impose martial law? What do you have to say about that? Those are our allies. Why do we sell weapons to these countries? Why do we support them? Why do we bomb Iraq when it commits similar problems?
There are various examples of things that are not right in this world, and the United States is trying. I really am surprised that people feel that it is necessary to defend the rights of Saddam Hussein, when what we ought to be thinking about is how to make sure that he does not use weapons of mass destruction.
I'd like to...
Who are shouting, just a moment.
I'm not defending him in the least. What I am saying is that there needs to be consistent application of U.S. foreign policy. We cannot support people who are committing the same violations because they are political allies. That is not acceptable. We cannot violate UN resolutions when it is convenient to us. You're not answering my question, Madam Albright.
You briefed the press, did you not, when you were there?
Well, I had several jobs. One of my jobs was that of analyst. I also was an interrogator and indeed briefed the press when we, the CIA, wanted to circulate disinformation on a particular issue. Disinformation is not necessarily a lie. It may be a half-truth. And we would pick out a journalist. I would go do the briefing and hope that he would put the information in print.
What was your percentage of success?
We were pretty successful in planning information of a rather rarefied nature. For instance, if we wanted to get across to the American public that the North Vietnamese were building up their force structure in South Vietnam, I would go to a journalist and advise him that in the past 6 months, X number of North Vietnamese forces had come down the Ho Chi Minh Trail system through southern Laos. Now, there is no way a journalist can check that information. That's data derived from radio intercepts, spy in the sky photography. So either he goes with the information or he doesn't, and ordinarily or usually the journalist would go with it because it looked like some kind of exclusive. Go after these gentlemen. I would be directed to cultivate them, to spend time with them at the Caravel Hotel or the Continental Hotel, to socialize with them, and slowly but surely to try to gain their confidence by dolloping out valid information which was true. And then I would drop into a conversation the data that we wanted to get across, which might not be true. One piece of data, for instance, that we managed to plant in the New Yorker magazine had to do with a supposed North Vietnamese effort in 1973 to develop airfields along the border of South Vietnam. The reason we wanted to plant this information was that we were trying to persuade the U.S. Congress that Saigon should continue to get a great deal of aid, and that the North Vietnamese were the chief violators of the ceasefire accord. That was printed in the New Yorker magazine under the byline of Robert Chaplin, as indeed was a great deal of such information which we tried to circulate.
Frank, a two-part question. What were the objectives of or what was the objective of the CIA? What about the moral implications of what you were doing in feeding disinformation? Did the objective override the moral implications, moral problems?
Well, the objective of the agency in general is to generate intelligence and get it back to Washington, to get at the truth and make sure the policymakers understand it. When you plant disinformation, you are diverging from that objective, and I think probably in retrospect, it was very counterproductive. I am, as an ex-CIA agent, opposed to the disinformation activities in which I was involved. I admit that I was involved, and I think it served no useful purpose. Propagandizing the American public or Congress is not the CIA's job. As to the morality of what the CIA was doing or that particular activity, the war was a very relative thing. It was a relativist environment, and morality seldom came into play when you were operating in the field. In my estimation, a CIA man should be amoral. That may sound pretty shocking to somebody, but what if my morality were that of a Nazi agent, if you will? You wouldn't want me to be your intelligence officer. Keep the morals out of intelligence. Keep the truth in, and stay away from disinformation.
It would have been more appropriate for Mr. Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, to address this House according to Article 144, an article which was specifically designed to debate violations of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, which is clearly the case with Mr. Trudeau. Then again, a Prime Minister who openly admires the Chinese basic dictatorship, who tramples on fundamental rights by persecuting and criminalizing his own citizens as terrorists just because they dared to stand up to his perverted concept of democracy, should not be allowed to speak in this House at all. Mr. Trudeau, you are a disgrace for any democracy. Please spare us your presence. Thank you.
Colleagues, but the answer to war is not more war, it's peace. And peace isn't delivered by the barrel of a gun, it's delivered by diplomacy, by dialogue. You can wish away your continent's history, but we share a continent with Russia. We will sit down with Russia. There will be a negotiated peace, and this organization should be promoting it earlier rather than delaying it and making sure that more Ukrainians die. Your feigning of sympathy rings hollow. It makes me sick, to be honest with you.
we become involved when disinformation poses a threat to the security of our country. It is when there's a connectivity to a threat to our country. It could be a threat, a connectivity to violence. And what this working group does, is precisely what I would think you would want it to do, which is to take a look at the work, the disinformation work that our department has done and ask the following questions. Do we have policies? Do we have guardrails? Do we have standards?
But here's the problem. We can't even agree. We can't even agree what disinformation is. You can't even agree that it was disinformation, that the Russians fed information to the Steele dossier. You can't agree to that. How are we ever going to come to an agreement on what is disinformation so you can police it on social media?
Senator, I have 2 points, if I may finish. Number one, that what this office, what this working group does, because it's not an office, what this working group does is ensure that there are guardrails, definitions, standards to make sure that the free speech rights, the civil rights, civil liberties, and privacy rights of individuals.
So do you think COVID disinformation threatens our national security?
And number two, if I may, Senator, and number two, is it your proposition that when the cartels spread disinformation with respect to our immigration policies to try to lure vulnerable migrants to our border illegally?
I think you've got no idea what disinformation is, and I don't think the government's capable of it. Do you know who the greatest propagator of disinformation in the history of the world is? The U.S. government. Are you familiar with McNamara, the Pentagon Papers? Are you familiar with George W. Bush and the weapons of mass destruction? Are you familiar with Iran-Contra? I mean, think of all the debates and disputes we've had over the last 50 years in our country. We work them out by debating them. We don't work them out by the government being the arbiter. I don't want you guardrails. I want you to have nothing to do with speech. You think we can't determine, speech by traffickers is disinformation? You think the American people are so stupid they need you to tell them what the truth is? You can't even admit what the truth is with the Steele dossier. I don't trust government to figure out what the truth is. Government is largely disseminating disinformation.
Hey everyone, just as a reminder, our show starts at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, just a few minutes from now, but I should remind you that we have a daily newsletter. It's totally free. Natalie and I work very hard on it every morning over our cup of coffee, putting the stories together that we think are important that the mainstream media is going to ignore. All you need to do is go to our website. It's just redacted.inc. Put in your email address. We won't ever sell your email to anybody. And then you'll receive a welcome email. And all you need to do is verify that email, and 7 a.m. Eastern Time is when we send out our daily newsletter. And it's about 5 or 10 minutes in length that you can read it over your cup of coffee. And like I said, we cover 4 or 5 of the big stories of the day, plus a couple of things you might have missed while you were sleeping. We try to have some fun with it, add a little humor into it. And again, it's a great way to start off your morning. But it's also a great way for us to stay connected with you as well, because we've been banned and blocked on some of these platforms before, where we haven't been allowed to post anything, not even a community post. So the only way for us to stay connected with you is through our newsletter. We were able to send out a newsletter and say, hey everyone, we're blocked for the next week, and let you know what was actually going on with our show. Anyway, go to redacted.inc and sign up for the free newsletter, and it'll be posted first thing in the morning over your cup of coffee.
This is a bit of an aside, but in terms of how you think about problem sets, when I was a cadet, what's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire We had entire training courses.
We had a good discussion on ensuring global energy security and adequate oil supplies to support global economic growth, and that will begin shortly. I'm doing all I can to increase the supply for the United States of America, which I expect to happen. The Saudis share that urgency, and based on our discussions today, I expect we'll see further steps in the coming weeks.
Are you worried about
One of the hopeful things that I've discovered is that nearly every war that has started in the past 50 years has been a result of media lies. The media could have stopped it if they had searched deep enough. If they hadn't reprinted government propaganda, they could have stopped it. But what does that mean? Well, that means basically populations don't like wars. And populations have to be fooled into wars. Populations don't willingly and with open eyes go into a war. So if we have a good media environment, then we'll also have a peaceful environment.
Killed a million people in Iraq.
That is a separate...
You killed a million people in Iraq. It's incredible that you have the brass neck to be sitting here now urging another Iraq war.
George,
after
if
what
I
you've
was still
already
in
done.
Parliament, I...
There can be no doubt that Saddam Hussein has biological weapons and the capability to rapidly produce more, many more. And he has the ability to dispense these lethal poisons and diseases in ways that can cause massive death and destruction. If biological weapons seem too terrible to contemplate, chemical weapons are equally chilling. UNMOVIC already laid out much of this, and it is documented for all of us to read in UNSCOM's 1999 report on the subject. If we consider just one category of missing weaponry, 6,500 bombs from the Iran-Iraq war, UNMOVIC says the amount of chemical agent in them would be in the order of 1,000 tons. These quantities of chemical weapons are now unaccounted for. Dr. Blick says, quipped that, quote, mustard gas is not marmalade. You are supposed to know what you did with it. We believe Saddam Hussein knows what he did with it, and he has not come clean to the international community. We have evidence these weapons existed. What we don't have is evidence from Iraq that they have been destroyed or where they are. That is what we are still waiting for.
Okay, inspection worth doing, everybody's agreed it's worth doing, and it gets stopped.
Yes, sir.
At that moment, we're an automatic pilot as far as you're concerned. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, I respect that. But now, it seems to me the Secretary of State might have a slightly different problem. Secretary of State might be sitting there and saying, now look over there on that side. Now, I remember so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and the 12 people on this side, they're all the ones that said they didn't want to use force. Now, I'm going to have to go tell the president now that we should, or Secretary Cohen, unleash whatever it takes to get it done. And our military assessment is the same as the major's. The major's assessment is, privately held but publicly acknowledged later, that airstrikes alone aren't going to do this. Saddam's not going to cave on this. So, now here's the deal. I recommended the president have at it and let the chips fall where they may. A reasonable position for the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State to take. But I respectfully suggest, Major, I respectfully suggest they have a responsibility slightly above your pay grade. Slightly above your pay grade. To decide whether or not to take the nation to war alone. Or to take the nation to war partway. Or to take the nation to war halfway. That's a real tough decision. That's why they get paid the big bucks. That's why they get the limos and you don't. I mean this sincerely. I'm not trying to be flip. Because I think, and that's why I said at the outset, the reason why I'm glad you did what you did, we should come to our milk. We should make a decision. But in terms of whether the Secretary of State has no more to consider than you do as the arms inspector, you didn't get in, didn't get my job done, get me in. Period. You made the deal, right? That's the deal. A deal's a deal. Get me in. Scott Ritter, I'm ready to go. It's not how it works. Now, maybe it should work that way. But wouldn't you acknowledge that if you were President of the United States or the Secretary of State, you'd sit there and say, now, okay, old Scotty boy didn't get in. We said he should get in. We want him to get in. It's important that he does get in. They're not going to let him in, so what are we going to do now? We know that France and Russia aren't going to be with us. We're quite confident China's not. We've already run those traps. They're not there. We're not sure where the United States Senate is, but have at it, boys. Go get them. And by the way, Scott and the boys say air power's not enough. I think it's a legitimate debate, Major. I think it's a legitimate debate. But I don't think we should be putting it in the context of you have somebody up there at state saying, look, how can we weasel out of this agreement? We want to let this guy out there hanging. We're not this. It's a very practical political decision. Same kind of decision General Powell made. Same kind of decision President Bush made. Every president, every Secretary of State has to do it. Like I said, they get paid more than you. Their job's a hell of a lot more complicated than yours. They may have made the wrong decision, and you brought it to light. We should address it. We should say straight up where we are, and we should do it. And for that, I thank you. But it's above your pay grade.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon, and one of the generals called me, and he said, sir, you got to come in and talk to me a sec. He says, we've made the decision we're going to war with Iraq. I said, we're going to war with Iraq? Why? He said, I don't know. He said, I guess they don't know what else to do. He said, I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we got a good military and we can take down governments. And he said, I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail. So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? And he said, oh, it's worse than that. He reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper. He said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
Hey everyone, Clayton here. The show is going to start at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I should remind you that we have a VIP community. It's our Redacted Rebel VIP community. Now, this show is totally free, what you're watching right now, right? You can subscribe here on YouTube and Rumble, totally free. But if you'd like to support independent journalism, we are run by you. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do this show. We wouldn't be able to hire the team that we have. We wouldn't be able to afford the servers that we have. We wouldn't be able to afford the reporters that we have, the team that we have. So you can support us by going to redacted.inc, and on the right side of your screen, you'll see a VIP community button. Just click that, and for the price of a cup of coffee once a month, you can support us. We put out exclusive content, early interviews that no one else will see, live streams just for our VIP Rebel community. So again, it's totally free to watch this show. But if you do want to support independent journalism, we would really appreciate it. Come on over to redacted.inc, click on that community button, and decide if you want to sign up or not. It's totally up to you. We thank you. And meanwhile, the show will start in just a few moments at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Whatever our hopes may be for the future, for reducing this threat or living with it, there is no escaping either the gravity or the totality of its challenge to our survival and to our security. A challenge that confronts us in unaccustomed ways in every sphere of human activity. This deadly challenge imposes upon our society two requirements of direct concern, both to the press and to the President. Two requirements that may seem almost contradictory in tone, but which must be reconciled and fulfilled if we are to meet this national peril. I refer first to the need for far greater public information, and second, to the need for far greater official secrecy. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
Hey, everybody, welcome into Redacted on this Thursday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And on this show, we tend to cover the stories the mainstream media doesn't, or we navigate through this big pile of propaganda that we hope that we can provide some truth and facts for you. You can join us on this crazy journey and navigating this clown world. And boy, last night, you had the Republican national debate. You had President Biden coming out basically asking for more money for Ukraine, demanding that Congress move forward with funding for Ukraine. And it was amazing to watch all of the media sort of neocon talking heads fall in line with this idea that Putin is coming for you. Putin is coming to invade Europe. He's coming for you in America. This seems to be the new talking point from neocons and the White House today. So we're going to dive into, is Putin coming for you, in just a moment.
Plus, do globalists benefit if you drink a lot and give away your power and are controllable? Yes, they do. We've talked about this when it comes to other products like junk food, processed food, bugs, right? We're going to break this down when it comes to alcohol. You may not like it, but we're going to look at some of the data that's telling you that you can drink responsibly.
Klaus Schwab loves this. Klaus Schwab wants you to drink, so the World Economic Forum actually wants you to be buying alcohol. And we're also going to look at this UFO Disclosure Act has just come out of committee in the House of Representatives. This happened, and we're watching what comes next, because this was a big moment last night. This bill, remember, the Senate already passed their version of the UFO Disclosure Act. This was the House of Representatives' moment to do this. They came out of committee last night with their version of the bill. Now it goes to the broader part of Congress to be signed. What's in it? What was left out of it? Some are saying this is a major victory. Others saying this is a major setback. Dr. Michael Salla is going to join us to unpack what this means for disclosure and you spending billions of dollars a year and going to these mysterious government programs that you're not even told about. All of that and more as Redacted starts right now. Hey, everybody. Welcome into the big show on this Thursday. I hope you guys are having a good Thursday. Let us know where you're joining us from around the world. Drop us a comment here on YouTube or Rumble or on X. We're streaming live on all of those platforms. So good to see you guys. Just let us know where you're joining us from here. And be sure to subscribe, by the way, because our show is free. We don't charge you a penny for it. So you can subscribe. You can follow us on these platforms for free. And you can hopefully receive a notification. Last night on the show, someone said they finally got their first notification. YouTube sent them a notification when we went live. And I was like,
that's exciting.
Wow, amazing. Finally.
Yeah, so if you don't get those, though, it's on you to be here every Monday through Thursday live. That's when we are here live. Hey, if you'd like to support Redacted with Redacted merchandise, you can do that at redactedstore.com. Now is a good time to look into buying some Christmas gifts for your favorite friends who also like Redacted, or your friends who don't like Redacted but need to.
Or they don't even know about Redacted. Can you imagine getting someone a Redacted mug and they're like, what the hell is this?
And you're like, you need to know.
Yeah,
you should know what that is.
What is this I will not comply sticker?
Right. Your favorite,
because it's been redacted.
Right. Your favorite blue MAGA friend who absolutely loves censorship will maybe not want this under the tree.
Yeah, send your friend who is like a Biden supporter or something like that. Send them, a redacted mug, or friends don't let friends watch mainstream media.
Exactly right. Mug. Yeah, anybody who loves, let's see, the medical industrial complex, the military industrial complex, the censorship industrial complex,
the
biopharmaceutical industrial complex. Send them this. Maybe this is a way to get them thinking, or also your friends who already are against those things and want to prove it. So yes, you can find our entire lineup at redactedstore.com.
Well, get ready, because Putin is about to attack the United States or our allies in NATO. He's coming. I mean, did you hear Uncle Joe Biden telling us this? Unless we send billions of dollars to Ukraine, Putin is coming for you. Forget the fact that Ukraine is the most corrupt country on the planet. Do you really want Putin to win? Like, who cares that Ukraine's corrupt? We can send them $200 billion and we don't know where it is. That's fine. But Putin will win if we don't send them money. And he's going to come to our house and ruin Christmas. Here is our commander-in-chief laying it all out for us.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to speak to you today about an urgent responsibility the Congress has to uphold the national security needs of the United States and, quite frankly, of our partners as well. This cannot wait. Congress needs to pass supplemental funding for Ukraine before they break for the holiday resources. As simple as that. Frankly, I think it's stunning that we've gotten to this point in the first place. If Putin takes Ukraine, he won't stop there. It's important to see the long run here. He's going to keep going. He's made that pretty clear. If Putin attacks a NATO ally, if he keeps going, and then he attacks a NATO ally, well, we've committed as a NATO member that we defend every inch of NATO territory, then we'll have something that we don't seek and that we don't have today. American troops fighting Russian troops.
Okay. Did you catch that ultimate blackmailing technique? So you better approve money to Ukraine. You better send billions of dollars. Don't ask any questions, or I will be left with no choice but to send American sons and daughters to die for Ukraine against Russia, to fight Putin. If you missed that like blackmailing piece of this, I want to make sure and replay it here. Take a listen.
Well, we've committed as a NATO member that we defend every inch of NATO territory. Then we'll have something that we don't seek and that we don't have today. American troops fighting Russian troops. American troops fighting Russian troops if he moves into other parts of NATO.
Yeah. So you better send money because he's going. But the message here is he's going to invade Europe. He's going to attack NATO allies. He's going to hit American allies. He's going to hit America.
And
that's the argument here.
Going to further westward.
Yeah,
he's going to go.
They're not even saying that that there's a chance he might do it. They're saying he will do it.
Yes.
They're saying if we don't send billions more to Ukraine and Ukraine is forced to unconditionally surrender, then Putin is going to move into all parts of Europe. He's going to take over Poland. He's going to, he'll go to Germany next. He's going to go they'll be drinking vodka in Lisbon, Portugal. Like, that's the plan. Oh, and he's not going to stop there. He's coming for Alaska. He's coming for the United States. Putin is coming for you. And this is what they're hoping you'll believe. I mean, they've now moved to the level of insane with this talking point.
The problem is that most people don't understand that Russia and Russian government has never expressed interest in moving beyond the contested Donbass region. They have never said that. And you can
formerly
look it up,
Eastern Ukraine.
Right. And that it was not Putin that single-handedly launched the special military operation. It was voted by Parliament,
in
Russian
Russia.
Parliament,
right,
at the behest of those regions, Luhansk and Donetsk, they did petition Russia to come in and save them from further attacks from the Ukrainian army. Most people just don't understand that. They're just like, yeah, Putin came in because he wanted more land and he wants more and more. So it's a stupidity to repeat those things, but they count on you being that stupid.
Well, everyone in the White House is on the same page with this, by the way. So you can tell that this is a White House neocon talking point because neocons are on page with this, and so is the White House. And they are funded, of course, and built and run by the military-industrial complex. This is the deep state doing its speaking through these mouthpieces. No one better to pull this off than John Kirby. Watch.
Make no mistake, Selena, he hasn't given up his strategic goal of subjugating the entire country. He doesn't believe it ought to exist as a sovereign state. And so we can't support Ukraine. Their chief advisor yesterday said they're likely to lose this war if they lose U.S. support. And Putin gets all of Ukraine, then what? Then where's he go? Because right then, he's up against the eastern flank of NATO. And if you think the cost of supporting Ukraine is high now, just imagine how much higher it's going to be, not just in national treasure, but in American blood, if he starts going after one of our NATO allies. Because as the president also said, we take our Article 5 commitments very seriously. And what we've had over the last 2 years is a Ukrainian military actually clawing back territory and pushing back Russian aggression without any foreign boots on the ground, including no American boots. American boots would very much have to be involved if Mr. Putin is let to have this strategic victory in Ukraine and then perhaps goes after one of our NATO allies.
So if you don't send money, we send American troops, because that's our, look, Congress, we're blackmailing you here. That's really the only solution. Well, Congress isn't biting.
Also, he's lying. He's lying by saying Ukraine has been clawing back territory. No, they haven't. They have not. And what he's implying here is that it's ethical to let them keep dying. But if we have to send our own bodies, then that's a warning. But otherwise, we should be A-okay with them dying on behalf of what we want.
Yeah, they haven't clawed back anything. And the area around Kiev that was given back was part of an agreement for peace. And that the only reason they even handed that back to them was because of a peace agreement that was being worked on that got torpedoed by Boris Johnson and NATO. This is laughable, by the way. Didn't want those parts of the country at all and handed it back as part of the peace agreement. It's written down on paper, by the way. You can read it for yourselves. Anyway, Congress isn't biting on this giving money bullshit. And Congress basically gave Biden the big BBC News middle finger last night.
Live from London, this is BBC News.
That is going to be used over and over now here on Redacted. We're going to call it the BBC News middle finger. So suddenly what's that?
I was just going to say, did you see Biden's tweet last night about the Congress and the blackmail?
No.
It says Republicans in Congress are threatening to cut off support for Ukraine. So they're threatening to cut off support unless they pass their partisan border policies for the United States. Says it's political blackmail, pure and simple, which means he's pissed off that the Republicans are blocking money to Ukraine in order to get money for our border.
Exactly.
So he wants to secure Ukraine border, but not our own.
Exactly.
And that's blackmail.
And I'm going to show you some record-breaking numbers at the border in just a moment, which will be stunning. And that really speaks to the argument that they want. So here is what suddenly the United States Congress woke up last night and decided to pretend to care about America instead of putting Ukraine and Israel first. They voted against spending $110 billion for Israel and Ukraine. The effort failed in a vote of 49 to 51, so barely. Every Republican voted against the measure, and even Bernie Sanders voted no, specifically because he was more focused on Israel. But nevertheless, specifically, they wanted to make sure that Ukraine is not getting $111 billion. And, well, of course, it would be chunked up, and basically they'd probably get about 60 of it, and some would go to Israel and then Taiwan as well.
Bernie Sanders specifically said that he did not believe that we should give the right-wing extremist Netanyahu government money with no strings attached to continue the inhumane war against the Palestinian people. So he all of a sudden has remembered that he is anti-war. He seemed to have forgotten for the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's very convenient. And a lot of these guys, convenient. Suddenly now, they're like, wait a minute, Ukraine is corrupt and we don't know where our money's going. The State Department has been saying that for years. We know that Ukraine is the most corrupt country in Europe, arguably in the world. And you knew this all along. The United States government has classified them as such. This is not a mystery. Rand Paul has been out there since the very beginning saying that we shouldn't be sending money to them. So suddenly this is a mystery. Suddenly they're having a crisis of conscience here, like Representative Perry. He said this. He says, we have no intention of writing checks to this most corrupt country on the planet for the good of cheer of Democrats and Republicans, he said, whatever you want to call them. He said, according to Representative Perry, the U.S. pays for the Ukrainian government, their pensions, their government services, and the like, while they themselves cannot afford to provide Americans with their own pensions and security in the United States. And we know this. We're paying for their infrastructure in Ukraine. Sorry,
I think the
checkbook's done.
The last line of that document you showed said Chuck Schumer, once he realized it was going to lose, he changed his vote to a no.
Right.
Like,
he's
just
an
for what?
opportunist. Yeah. He's like,
Yeah,
well, I
exactly.
saw that we didn't have the vote, so I'm gonna also throw in and say, no, we're not doing that.
Well, what he said was like, oh, I'll tank it if it's going to lose. And then like he wasn't going to tank it. Right. And so then
Right,
I
that's
can
like
reintroduce another one.
Yeah.
show up to a football game dressed at supporting Denver, and then they start losing, so you go in the back and change into an Eagles outfit and come out.
Yeah, go Eagles! I was an Eagles fan the whole time. Wait a minute, didn't I see you in a Broncos jersey earlier? No, those were old times.
This is bipartisan. It wasn't going to be, but it is now.
So last night during the Republican debate, there was a lot of fireworks, but Ukraine was at the heart of this debate. I was really stunned to hear this last night. And Vivek Ramaswamy really went after Nikki Haley, of course, who's a neoconservative, and she is absolutely fully in the tank for this same idea that the Biden administration is, that we should send billions of dollars into Ukraine, into the black hole of corruption. And she's fully on board with that. But Vivek called her out in much the same way that most members of Congress, like Jamal, what was his name? Jamal Bowman? Jamal Brown?
Bowman, yeah.
Bowman.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Jamal Brown. He couldn't, Bowman?
Jamal Brown, I think.
Brown. Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, what was it? I think, yeah. Anyway,
Bowman is the one who launched the fire alarm.
Yes. Okay. He couldn't name anything in eastern Ukraine. He couldn't name anything about Donetsk, or he couldn't name anything about Luhansk. He couldn't name any of those cities in those areas. He doesn't know that there's ethnic Russians there. He doesn't know anything that since 2014 they've been bombing them indiscriminately and killing civilians. He doesn't know anything about that. But he thinks, Putin is a madman. So last night, Vivek went after Nikki Haley specifically and asked her to name 3 of the provinces in eastern Ukraine, just 3 of the provinces in eastern Ukraine that had been formerly contested, which are now under Russian control. And this was an amazing moment. Watch.
I want everybody at home to note that I was the first person to say we need a reasonable peace deal in Ukraine. Now a lot of the neocons are quietly coming along to that position, with the exceptions of Nikki Haley and Joe Biden, who still support this, what I believe is pointless war in Ukraine. And I think those with foreign policy experience, one thing that Joe Biden and Nikki Haley have in common is that neither of them could even state for you 3 provinces in eastern Ukraine that they want to send our troops to actually fight for. Look at that. This is what I want people to understand. These people she has no idea what the hell the names of those provinces are, but she wants to send our sons and daughters and our troops and our military equipment to go fight it.
And you can hear the news anchor, they're trying to give her cover. Like, let's move on. Okay, that's enough.
She doesn't have to name those things.
She doesn't have to name those things. She doesn't have to name those things. And it's like this blank stare, like, huh? Do you want to respond? Sorry. No, but we need to keep sending money there. We need to send American sons and daughters there to fight in order to, I don't know, whatever, further neocons' wishes. It was an unbelievable moment. And what's amazing is, so that was last night. Then this morning, just a short time ago, this morning on Fox and Friends, they had Vivek on again for like a town hall kind of diner thing this morning. And they blasted the heck out of him this morning. And so they had like some sort of a satellite issue. Like they had him up, they were about to interview him, and then they lost the satellite. And then you can hear one of the Fox News hosts like blasting Vivek. And then they're like, oh, do we have him back? Okay, we've got him back. Well, now I'll just blast him right to his face and say that your policy on not sending billions to Ukraine is naive and ridiculous. Do you want Putin to win? This was an amazing moment. Watch this.
But the problem, I just like to know when this policy is just ridiculous on Russia and Ukraine. He says, tell Russia basically they can have Ukraine if they promise not to have an alliance with China. I mean, if there's... can we hear us now? Hey, Vivek.
I can hear.
Vivek, are you comfortable? Are you comfortable with Russia taking as much as Ukraine as they want? Are you comfortable pulling all our aid out? And do you really believe that Vladimir Putin will agree not to have an alliance with China?
I think we have to play hardball there and make a hard deal that requires any reneging on that deal to have major consequences.
Like what? Like sanctions,
so
like we have right now?
I think it is not in our interest to strengthen the Russia-China alliance, and I think our policy right now is driving Russia further into China's arms.
It's going to be done anyway. You cannot keep Russia from China.
I think Russia is going... I think the answer is we are driving Russia into China's hands. There are kinks in the armor of that relationship. Look at Russia sending weapons to India and to Vietnam after other meetings they've had.
Are you comfortable giving up Eastern Europe? Because you know they're already taking Moldova, already making moves on the Baltic already. They're taking more and more pieces of Georgia.
Tell you what I'm not comfortable
and all
with.
we've done is sit there and send blankets and MREs, and we got an invasion.
By the way, hold on. I'm sorry, we've only sent blankets to Ukraine because that doesn't sound
And
accurate.
MREs.
And meals
Bagged
ready to
food.
eat. Yeah, we've sent them
Those are some
MREs.
some expensive blankets. Like what kind of MREs? I mean, it's like Don Perignon in every MRE. What the hell?
I know, it's unbelievable. That's all we've sent is blankets and meals. Okay, sure.
So what is going to be next?
Because we have no idea how Ukraine has spent $200 billion of our money. We're forking over more taxpayer money.
Do you
so some
see how they
Ukrainian
fight?
kleptocrat can buy a
These
bigger
guys
house.
are the best
That's
fighters in
corrupt,
the.
and I'm not going to stand for that.
Ukrainians are probably the
That's a
best
lie.
fighters in the world.
Ukraine is not some democracy.
Ukraine is
That's
fighting for their sovereignty.
Well,
and they were invaded.
Here's something that the news
They were
media has
invaded.
reported. Ukraine has actually assassinated a former presidential
It just
candidate
makes you
from
sound
2019,
so
but somehow the media
naive.
doesn't like to report that.
So naive.
Well,
You give
Brian,
up
I
Ukraine, and then in a few years you'll be criticizing Joe Biden for giving up Ukraine.
I respectfully, we can respectfully, Brian, I think that if I called Nikki Haley naive, you guys would be having a conniption.
Okay, they were screaming. What was applauded in the diner when he dumped on Ukraine?
Oh, you want to hear that again? Great, because I thought that was the most impressive moment. On the one hand, you had Brian Kilmeade on Fox saying something, right? What he was saying on the right side was one thing. And then what Vivek on the left side was of your screen was saying, got a huge applause line at the diner there about not sending $200 billion into the most corrupt country in the world, and we can't account for it. And we have thousands of people crossing our southern border in the United States, and why shouldn't we be protecting that? So anyway,
and those American diners knew that, and Brian Kilmeade did not. God help me.
I know.
Yes.
I mean, literally, all the diners are like applauding, and then like it was like an echo chamber. It was so fascinating to watch. On one side, it's like an out of touch media, and national billions is spent on the media, and then on the left side, like someone who's among the people. It was just let's play it again so you can see it in there.
These guys are the best fighters in the.
And I'm not going to stand for that.
Ukrainians are probably the best fighters in the world.
It's not some democracy.
Yeah, so
wait.
Let me just.
I can't. Wait. He literally said Ukrainians are the best fighters in the world.
Yes. So on the right side of your screen, okay, on the left side you had Vivek saying, "I'm not going to send $800 billion so they can assassinate presidential candidates in Ukraine and send and buy luxury vehicles and luxury houses around the world and hundreds of billions of dollars." And on the right side of your screen on Fox, saying that Ukrainians are the best fighters in the world. How does the American military feel about that? Right? The Ukrainians are the best fighters in the world. It was a. Can we play that again?
And they can't get any territory back from Russia.
Yeah, let's play that again.
They fight.
These guys are the best fighters in the.
And I'm not going to stand for that.
Ukrainians are probably the best fighters in the world.
It's not some democracy.
Yeah.
What is he studying?
I don't know, but I mean, look.
The State Department notes.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's really bizarre. It's really bizarre because a lot of these guys, they get these generals there, they get those neoconservatives there who are on the payroll, and they have an agenda, of course, which is the military-industrial complex. And so there's nothing more. This is not supporting the United States. This is not supporting the United States military. If you stand with like the United States men and women in military, you want them to go fight and die in Ukraine for Ukraine? What the hell? How does that protect us or help us in any way? It is absolutely ignorant and naive to think that helps us in any way. In the same way that the idea that the war on terror helps the United States in any way, it doesn't. It makes us less secure and less safe. And that is verifiable. All you need to do is pick up a book and understand that. Go ahead, David.
I was going to say, maybe he knows that, knows something that we don't, that there's more U.S. soldiers in the Ukrainian army than we thought.
I mean, we have special forces there. There's a lot of Americans.
It's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, we know from sources that they are given just bare minimum training and given about 5 live bullets. That's it to use to fire.
And drugs. We have reported here that they're given drugs.
So they're the best fighters in the world. There's no army left. There's no military left. You guys, NATO killed 500,000 people in Ukraine. An entire generation is gone. They don't have a military anymore. They're the best fighters in the world? What are you smoking? But it was just a really stark moment on the left side of your screen to see these people in this town hall, like hearing him talk about, we're not giving $200 billion to a corrupt government when our U.S. borders are pouring open, and this money is going to all these corrupt oligarchs in Ukraine. It was really like a bizarro moment, out of touch. So
Right. And the hosts were like, oh, wait, what's being applauded? Not what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're
applauding.
Maybe I should think about what I'm saying and go back to my
Not to
books.
mention that our special forces that are in Ukraine must be barefoot because, as we saw earlier, John Kirby was like, we have no boots on the ground. Is that like a wink, wink? They're all wearing sandals. Like, what the hell? Like, we obviously
paused.
have people there.
He paused for a second. He's like, otherwise we have no boots on the ground. But they've managed to take up all of this ground and area without any U.S. boots on the ground. He kind of paused for a moment there. He had to think about how he was going to say that.
Something that I think about too is like the more money we send, the more weapons we send, the more Ukrainians are going to die. And at some point, they're going to run out of people. They're going to start dragging high schoolers and probably junior high schoolers into this. Like it's going to, are they just going to keep going until there's no, military age men left in Ukraine?
Well, no, they want us to do it. So what will come next, of course, is when the money dries up, they are laying the groundwork now. Well, we had to send American troops. We have to defend the world. We have to defend NATO, and we have to defend freedom. But we have to send Americans to die in order to fight Putin. So instead, what do these Republicans want, or what did these Republicans and some Democrats actually who voted against this spending bill for Ukraine? What exactly do they want? Well, they wanted money for a U.S. border to stop the flood of illegal immigrants coming across while they picked a good day to do it. Because yesterday, by the way, a new record was set. The most illegal immigrants ever recorded by the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol in one day. And Bill Malugin was there covering this, and it was actually pretty stark. He caught it on camera. Watch.
No, it's not stopping, Dana. The numbers are actually getting even worse. Multiple CBP sources telling me this morning in the last 24 hours, Border Patrol alone has made more than 10,000 apprehensions of illegal immigrants. That does not even include CBP ports of entry. And you can see the situation here in Lukeville behind us. We got well over 800 people waiting in line here after they crossed illegally overnight, waiting to be apprehended by Border Patrol. Once again, it's like deja vu from yesterday. You can see these guys are coming in from all over the world. A lot of African men, mostly single adult men here. Some of them were setting campfires overnight in the cold, camping out here, waiting to get taken into custody by Border Patrol. But CBP sources telling me in the last 24 hours in this Tucson, Arizona sector, there were almost 2,900 apprehensions, and the Border Patrol facilities out here are currently running 200% of their capacity. That is why there are so many people out here waiting to be taken into custody by Border Patrol. Now, Arizona has a Democrat governor. Her name is Katie Hobbs. She has not yet sent any state resources down here. No Arizona troopers, no Arizona National Guard.
So all men, all military age, by the way, coming across the border and given thousands of dollars by the United States government, given UBI, Universal Basic Income, given, a lot of them, they give cell phones, and they're released. And there you go.
Planed off to luxury hotels in New York and California. And
yeah. So they're considered like pro-Putin now in Congress if they want to stop that. You're pro-Putin if you want to stop the U.S. southern border invasion. Like that's the message coming from neocons. That's the message coming from the Biden White House. Bill Malugin followed up those numbers, by the way, with a tweet per the CBP resources here. There were more than 12,000 migrant encounters at that southern border yesterday. The single highest total day ever recorded. 10,200 Border Patrol apprehensions or illegal immigrants, amongst the highest daily totals ever for the Border Patrol. That's your U.S. southern border. So let us know in the comments below, what do you think? Do we need to send Americans to die in Ukraine or billions to Ukraine in order to stop Putin from invading the United States of America or Europe? Because apparently that's what's coming next. He's going to invade Europe.
All right, well, we have more news to get to. We're going to talk about how globalists want you to be drunk and powerless and rent your life and eat bugs and all of that stuff. But we're going to specifically look at the alcohol piece. That may be more uncomfortable for some because I know a lot of you are like, no one's taking my meat. No one's taking my whatever,
my
right?
Beer.
Okay, but we're going to talk about where you hand your power when you get drunk. So that's going to be fun. I'm not drunk. Are you?
Not yet.
Okay, so we're going to do it. It might be uncomfortable, but come on, let's take a look at the data. We're also going to look at this hearing out of the UK where Parliament has woken up to the fact that medicalization of the body for gender ideology hurts young people and young gay people specifically. There's a new hero in town, and I want you to see her because
she's amazing.
She's a badass bitch. Yeah, is what she is. Plus, we're going to talk about the new UFO Disclosure Act and whether or not it's a step forward or a step back. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at Indeed, because we're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed, because Indeed will match your needs with a candidate instead of just launch a wide search and have you comb through the wrong people. According to Indeed, millions of global monthly visitors are matched, and they help you find a candidate fast. So ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to an Indeed recent survey. You can leverage over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day. Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use it, the better it gets. Just in the minute we've been talking, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed worldwide data. So when you're hiring, it feels amazing to finally close out a job search. But what if you just get rid of the search and just match? So use our link right here on the screen, Indeed.com/redacted. You'll join over 3 million businesses using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Again, use our code Indeed.com/redacted so that they know that you appreciate them supporting us and you're supporting them. Again, with Indeed, your search is over. Just meet your match with Indeed at Indeed.com/redacted. All right, so why do globalist elites want you to drink alcohol? Simple answer, because it keeps you drunk and stupid and numb, and they can control you. Is that why the push to get you drinking more seems so insidious these days? Now, I just want to challenge you to see how much rhetoric around alcohol normalization you see this holiday season alone. Is alcohol a social control system akin to the push we talk about here a lot to keep you fat, to keep you eating junk food, eat less meat, bugs, processed food, rent your life, right? Consider this. Why would the WEF, the World Economic Forum, ask Saudi Arabia to start selling alcohol? If you've ever traveled in any Middle Eastern countries, you know that alcohol is banned in Muslim countries. The WEF had hoped that maybe Saudi Arabia would lift these rules when they build out their NEOM, the 10-minute city that is currently in construction. They said, no, we're not going to do that.
Good for them. The audacity. Klaus Schwab and his merry band of globalists is like, you know what? We have managed to control the rest of the Western world. We would love for you to start really introducing alcohol and other substances here so that we can take some broader control of these people. Can you please do this?
Maybe they think, this 10-minute wall city, we've shown you images of it before. They think that the line, nobody's going to want to live there if they have to live sober in there, or they might actually live in a way sober that we don't want them to live. I don't know. You think about the intention there. Last year, Western interests once again tried to get alcohol into the Middle East with the World Cup. Again, alcohol is not allowed in Qatar. They came this close to succeeding, but then at the last minute, the Qatari government said, actually, we can't do it. We're not comfortable with it.
And there was a lot of what Western media, like CNN, all these guys were like kind of pushing back on it too. It was interesting to see they're just sticks in the mud. Why aren't they like the West? Why aren't they selling alcohol? And everyone's getting drunk with,
Yeah, they said, hey, you can buy this Bud Zero all you want, because Budweiser was one of the official sponsors.
Yeah.
You can buy it all day, every day.
Zero alcohol in the Bud Zero.
Right. I don't know how that did for sales. I didn't take my time to look up how much Bud Zero they sold. But, it's interesting that governments are doing the bidding of alcohol companies. Why would they do that? Here's one more shocking example. Last year in Japan, the government launched a campaign literally asking people to drink more. They found that so many people gave up alcohol during the pandemic that it hurt the alcohol business. And so they funded what was called Sake Viva, a national campaign to drink. They literally said they're doing that to revive the alcohol industry so that they had more revenue to tax. So why would government leaders push so hard for alcohol? Is it because they love us and they know that we love alcohol? By that rationale, wouldn't they do that for meat? People really like meat, right?
Yeah,
no, they want to take that away. So by what rationale do they do this? Could it be along the same lines of population control? I just want to ask you this question. It's a rhetorical question.
Well, it's also the normalization too of, allowing people to start really smoking as much marijuana as they want, right?
Yes.
And the legalization of marijuana, which keeps the population dumb as hell.
Alcohol has a much higher fatality rate than marijuana and a much higher addiction rate. And it is one of the leading causes of preventable death and divorce and in this country. So alcohol's danger rate is way beyond marijuana and cocaine, actually, and a lot of other addictive drugs. So again, could it be along the same lines of population? Did you know, I just want to present you this. Did you know that the term drink responsibly, you see that's flashed along these ads for alcohol, was created by the alcohol lobby in the 1960s? Why would they do that? Is it, again, because they really care about you out of the goodness of their heart? No, it's because that phrase sells you a lie. The lie being that alcohol can be responsibly consumed and that a little bit doesn't hurt you. That's not true. There's never been any research.
So it's a good cover for them to be able to if you can drink, just drink responsibly.
Right. Given that we know that alcohol is worse for you than cocaine, that it's more addictive than cocaine, that it causes more family disruption than cocaine, that it kills more people and is one of the leading causes of preventable death. Can we then say, shoot up responsibly?
Right.
It would be the same.
Don't get them started because that's coming next. Shoot up. Well, I mean, a lot of the liberal cities across the country have already done this anyway. You're handing out syringes to people so they have walking zombies in San Francisco and Philadelphia and
Tenderloin District in San Francisco. They're providing everything for them.
Yes.
And up in Portland, right near where you guys are, up in Washington State area, you guys see it all the time too, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they're also reconsidering that ban. They actually just had a delegation from Portugal in Portland not too long ago because they're trying to figure out how Portugal's pulling it off and here it's not. And so they're looking at maybe making it a Class A misdemeanor so that they can actually charge. So they're undecriminalizing it or looking into it anyway.
Well, I can tell you how Portugal is pulling it off, and they are not, because Portugal did not legalize drugs. They stopped prosecuting drugs as a criminal offense. That does not mean you can. And if you are caught with drugs, they put you in an actual rehabilitation program for work, and you have to show that you're clean. Whereas these other programs in the United States, they don't care what you do. They just continue to give you drugs. These regulated doses of the drugs, even though they have no research to show that giving this regulated dose of drugs is safe, and there's no standard for it. So you might get a pound of it in Maryland and half a pound in Oregon. There's no real standard for it. So that's one.
And that's what they did in Oregon was they decriminalized it, but the part they weren't doing was they weren't. The idea was that same thing. They were supposed to, when people were found with it, they're supposed to go into treatment, but they weren't doing that.
No.
So then they just essentially decriminalized it, and they're like, you're on your own. Good luck.
Yeah, because liberals like this idea of body autonomy, it's racist to put you in a rehab program when most people are so grateful when they actually do get help for that. Okay, so where were we? Shoot up responsibly.
Right. Shoot up responsibly. Take a syringe and you're fine. Shoot up responsibly.
Yeah. Okay.
Do T-shirts.
There is no data that says that the human body can handle any amount of alcohol. But wait, you might say, the French paradox. Do you know the French paradox? This is oft quoted by enophiles. This was a study in the 1980s that showed that the French had low rates of heart disease despite regular red wine drinking. This study was funded by the wine industry associations in France. Follow-up studies have since been funded by Wine Institute and the International Wine and Spirit Research Group. Is that a surprise to you? We know that soda companies fund research on sugar. We know that tobacco companies funded research on cigarettes. Of course, the alcohol companies fund research to tell you that a little bit of alcohol is okay. It's not, I'm sorry to tell you, but it is a carcinogen. The very idea of alcoholism is promoted by the alcohol lobby because it allows them to sell you the idea that only some people can't handle alcohol, but others can. There's no research that says that. It's ethanol. Your car runs on it. I have made this case many times that alcoholism is not a disease. That also helps the alcohol industry. They fund research to prove that. A disease is a cellular malfunction. Alcoholism is not. Alcohol is addictive for everybody. It's not just some people who can't take it. Of course, there are levels of people who indulge like junk food because the brain becomes hijacked. That's not a disease. And calling it as such normalizes other people's responsible drinking. So while you're considering giving some alcoholic beverages this year, here's an Instagram account that I really like. Before gifting a bottle of booze this holiday season, keep in mind you're gifting the 4th leading preventable cause of death in the United States. So does that sound not fun? Yes, it doesn't. And, you know, I get it. I rarely, if ever, touch alcohol. Because of this research, because I don't like the idea of consuming carcinogen. At a wedding, I'll toast. On Christmas, I might have something, but this is something we need to take seriously because the more it permeates our culture, the more we give away our power. Consider this. The Guardian published research just this week showing that the average glass of wine is 577% larger than a glass of wine was in the 1700s. That is a generous pour. One glass now is almost 450 milliliters.
That's a swimming pool.
That is a lot, right?
Follows the same line as like Coca-Cola and Pepsi cups.
It's a big gulp. Yes, it's a wine big gulp. You're right. It's a super size. Now, consider when you're looking at that popular wines now have an alcohol by volume percentage that's also higher than ever before. In the 60s, the average beverage had about 9% ABV. Now, most alcohols have 12% or more. So not only are you drinking the big gulp, you're drinking the more alcoholic version. Based on those numbers, this is how long each unit of beverage takes to get into your system. 1 pint of beer is with you for 2.5 hours. So this idea, I don't know who came up with it, that I can have 1 or 2 at a party and still drive. You shouldn't, unless you stay for 7 hours. After 2 glasses of wine.
I'm curious how many people in our chat, just let us know, does anyone in our chat room know someone that was, affected by drinking and driving? Does anyone, do you have anybody in your close family, anybody related to you, friend, family? I mean, I can think of a number of people that were affected by it. In my close proximity. Just let us know in the chat room.
Right. And so this idea, I can have 1 or 2. Again, take a look. If you have 3, you got to stay for 10.5 hours at a party. If you want to, and you shouldn't, because then you're that person who's drunk and won't leave.
They're like, why is Dave still here?
Right.
Well, he had 1 drink and he's trying to sober up. And
I just want to also make this point. As for sleep, alcohol disrupts your REM cycle. And it stays in your body for 3 days. So if you drink even every other day, you are never going to get a full REM cycle of sleep and therefore never fully regenerate. If you haven't tried it in a long time, sober sleep is amazing. You should try it. So given that alcohol is so dangerous and our government really wants to protect us from dangerous things like COVID and the flu, why don't they ring in on alcohol? Because it serves a purpose. Right? You give your power away when you give into this drinking culture. Now,
well, also the government wants you to be sedated.
Yes.
They want you on SSRIs. They want you on alcohol, the legalization of marijuana. They want you to go to work all day. They want you to work 2-3 jobs. They want you to come home. They want you to drink and fall asleep.
They want you to feel like crap.
They want you to be a sedated.
Yeah.
focus on football teams and other distractions so that they can pass bills and give themselves more money.
Yeah, they can make billions of dollars and go into Ukraine and not tell you what's going on. And you just, as long as you're drunk, they're happy.
It's the modern day gladiator Coliseum.
Right.
Yeah. Now, am I speaking for prohibition? I'm not. Or turning America into the same rules as a Muslim country? Clearly, I don't think that's the solution right now.
And it wouldn't work. Prohibition failed.
Yes, true.
It never works.
Right. But when they say, like, these are the real risks of our society, misinformation or that kind of thing, you don't really see anything like any community strikes or misinformation out there about alcohol. Like, they're not really trying to protect you from things that are dangerous, or else this would be on the table. And in fact, these not so subtle messages that we need alcohol just to deal with everyday life start as young as 0 years old. Take a look at this. This is the kind of stuff that is advertised to me. Mommy drinks because I cry, or this, mama needs wine. This is the kind of stuff I see on Etsy or whatever.
Yeah, stuff pop-ups on Instagram.
This message that I cannot cope with life unless I have this help. I need to numb myself. I need anesthesia. It's just, a thought I wanted to leave you with, not to ruin your holiday, but to realize that this is one of many ways that we can be giving away our power to globalists as we just, make ourselves not strong. I like that Paul Saladino, he likes to say that drinking is borrowing tomorrow's happiness, because you feel like doo-doo and then you're going to feel like doo-doo tomorrow, right? And so something to think about.
Well, I think the big story here is we know it's awful for you, right? We've all known that. The advertising tries to teach you that it's not, and that you should just do it responsibly so that they can make billions of dollars. But it's, why is the World Economic Forum encouraging countries to sell alcohol and have its population drinking alcohol? I mean, right, their mission purports to lift up humanity, right, in all of these different ways, right?
Yeah.
And we know what their mission is. We know what they want is absolute control.
Yeah.
And if they're promoting alcohol, that should tell you everything you need to know about this mission, right?
Right.
They want these Muslim countries, they want Qatar, they want Saudi Arabia to start selling alcohol, and it's invasive. And I think, people just need to pay attention to it. I think it's very, very interesting. It's how these elites have managed to control the populace for thousands of years.
And the thing that kills me is how pervasive it is in the culture right now. And even in like mom chats and things like that, it's like, oh, I need a drink. Oh, I can't handle this unless I have, And I started to just notice that, how much it's a part of a conversation around anyone who's an adult. And just started to reject it and not say those words anymore. Like, I can't handle this. I need this too, right? And if I choose to have a drink, it's not because I can't cope with something. It's because maybe there's something to celebrate. So just notice this holiday season, how, that's fine, but COVID or whatever.
Yeah. Anyway.
So, okay.
Crazy. All right, we've got more news to get to here. We're going to talk about this gender debate in the UK. Plus, it also came up last night in the Republican national debate and got fiery. Megyn Kelly going after Chris Christie for some questions about, well, are you going to allow are you okay with parents just getting gender affirming surgeries, trans surgeries for kids? This got fiery last night. We'll show you that. Plus, we're going to look at UFO disclosures and the bill that's moving its way through Congress right now. And finally, we got a big movement out of the committee last night. What was in, what was out? We'll dive deeply into that. But first, do you guys want to make 5.1% interest on money that's sitting in a savings account? Well, that's what our friends at Moomoo have just rolled out. Not only is Moomoo our favorite trading platform where you can trade stocks and bonds and ETFs and all of that, and they give you all sorts of free stuff, bells and whistles that you would normally pay for, right, with other companies. No, they give it to you all for free, and you get 16 free stocks when you sign up. But now they've just rolled out their new 5.1% API. That is their new cash swap account. And it gives you interest on that cash that's sitting in your account. 5.1% annualized return. Think about that. I mean, real estate's, going crazy right now. Stock market's up and down, unpredictable. And yet if you have a savings account, normally you make like 0.01% in a crappy savings account with your local bank. Here, you get 5.1%. That's right. And it's protected federally by the FDIC insurance up to $1 million. which is really nice. So if you're like, oh, is this like a normal savings? Would my money be protected? Yes, they have FDIC insurance up to $1 million. So for advanced investors, if you got idle funds in your account, it's not going to stagnate. You can still earn higher interest rate of 5.1% every day when you find some different attractive stocks that you'd like to invest in. For instance, my account right now, I have cash sitting there ready to invest, but I'm just waiting right now for the Fed's comments next week. I want to see what Jerome Powell has to say next week. And there might be one or two stocks that I end up investing in. Well, guess what? It's sitting there in cash right now. So why shouldn't it be earning 5.1%? And then next week after Jerome Powell speaks and we hear that interest rates are going to be slashed or coming down next year, then I'm going to deploy that money and make some investments. But in the meantime, it's making really nice interest. So you should check it out. Go to, you can open a free account right now, but you have to use our link to get the 16 free stocks. Go to redacted.inc/Moomoo. That's MOOMOO. Redacted.inc/Moomoo. And you can download it on your iPhone, your Android device, your Mac, or PC. They're fantastic, and they're longtime supporters of what we do here. So thanks to Moomoo for your support of Redacted.
Well, Common Sense at a gender ideology hearing in the UK this week, and I am shocked and amazed and also very encouraged.
Common Sense, wow.
Yeah, this is where a leading member of parliament admits that the trans lobby is coming after gay kids, and the government should not be run by lobbyist groups. And further, they should rely on scientific research. What? What is this crazy talk? This is parliamentary member Kemi Badenoch. She says that the UK government is taking an evidence-based and principled approach on the trans issue. Now, this article on your screen right now is us being warned by trans lobbyists that she is a transphobic woman. This was from last year. They said that she was transphobic because she refused to pass legislation that would ban conversion therapy, which we're going to talk about in a second. And she also met with detransitioner Kira Bell in order to understand how children take hormones really young and can be harmed. We've talked about Kira Bell before. Kira Bell was put on cross-sex hormones, puberty blockers, and had breast removal very young. It was incredibly painful because that hurts and a lot. And then she said, I just was a masculine girl. I just was what we would call a tomboy back in the day. Now, this member of parliament, Kemi Badenoch, she has been bullied over this issue quite a bit by the trans lobby. She, DGAF, if you know what I mean, doesn't give a flying fart. She just keeps coming at it from an evidence-based approach. And watch how she was received. Here she is addressing that meeting with Kira Bell.
In May 2021, against official advice, I will stress that officials said you should not have this meeting. I met a young lady called Kira Bell. She was a lesbian. Who told me the horrific experience that she had in the Tavistock clinic. It was an eye-opening experience. I know that the member for Kirkcaldy and Cowdenbeath talked about transing away the gay in his speech in Westminster Hall debate. We are seeing, I would say, almost an epidemic of young gay children being told that they are trans and being put on a medical pathway for irreversible decisions, and they are regretting it. That is what I'm doing for young LGBT children. I am making sure that young people do not find themselves sterilized because they are being exploited by people who do not understand what these issues are. And I am saying this on the advice of clinicians. I'm saying this on the advice of academics. There are clinicians from the Tavistock who have been whistleblowing, talking about what these issues are. The honourable man tells me that he is traumatized. We are traumatized by what is happening to young children, and we are not going to run away from this issue any longer.
So that man who was guffawing, like, no, you're traumatizing me by these words, telling me that a lesbian was hurt, was Member of Parliament Chris Bryant. And I mean, he just was so entitled to say, no, you're wrong about this. Nope, I'm not hearing it. And she's saying, yeah, you're going to keep hearing it because we can't be hurting kids. Now, about conversion therapy, she has rejected laws that would call anybody not affirming someone's gender ideology conversion therapy. So that is, we're talking in so many double negatives here that I just want to be clear. So if Clayton were to tell me I am a woman, and I would say, no, you're not, you are a biological man, you're the father of my children, and I'm gonna, let's go talk to people to prove to you that you're a man, he would say, you're trying to do conversion therapy. That's how this is used right now, is that by not accepting my ideology, you're trying to convert me to what I am not. What they're using is old therapy of trying to convert a gay person straight. Clearly, it's not the same thing, right? And so what trans activists want is to say that not affirming gender ideology is conversion. She rejects that, and she thinks that it's unsafe to actually legislate that way. And here she is addressing that.
The Right Honourable gentleman asked a question about conversion practices. Can I just give a little bit more clarity about what it is we are doing? This is a longer answer than normal, but I know that this is a matter of deep interest across this House, so I would like to address my thinking fully. A commitment was given to publish a draft conversion practices bill for pre-legislative scrutiny. I am determined to meet this promise, as I know is the Minister for Equalities. Attempts at so-called conversion therapy are abhorrent and are largely already illegal. So what a bill would do is identify this as a particular threat to gay people and confirm the illegality of harmful processes intended to change someone's sexuality. In that time, since this bill was first promised, this issue has developed. Now, the threat to many young gay people is not conversion relating to their sexuality, but conversion relating to gender identity. Girls like Kira Bell, who were rushed onto puberty blockers by the NHS and had a double mastectomy, now regret the irreversible damage done to them. I believe that this is a new form of conversion therapy. Respected clinicians, like those who left Tavistock, have made clear they are fearful of giving honest clinical advice to a child, because if they do not automatically affirm and medicalize a child's new gender, they will be labeled transphobic. So whatever bill we do needs to address many of those issues, and that is why we are going to publish a draft bill.
Okay, so you guys, she is reclaiming the term conversion therapy. She's saying it's not conversion therapy to not accept someone's gender ideology. It's conversion therapy to push gender ideology on somebody. So if someone comes to you and they're a lesbian or an effeminate boy who will become a homosexual, and you say, you're not an effeminate boy who will become a homosexual, you are actually a woman, you're a trans woman, and we're gonna convert your body into something it will never, and she's saying that's conversion therapy, and they're going to hate her for it, but I applaud it, because that is exactly what you're doing, is converting what would otherwise be a totally gay, healthy gay person. And so this switcheroo is making people's heads spin, but she's done her homework. Further, she rejects this rhetoric saying that no child is born in, that a child is born in the wrong body. Watch.
I thank my right honourable friend for her question, and I certainly support any effort to clarify the law, and we should start from first principles. No child is born in the wrong body, and no child should be put on a pathway towards irreversible medical transition.
Yes, and further, she says she will not be bullied by Stonewall, which is a much discredited charity that is known to push kids right into medicalization of their bodies with any, they show any form of, like, a boy picks up a pink bat. That's it. Put him on the old penis chopper. Now, here's where she says Stonewall doesn't run this country.
And one of the issues that we have is that a lot of people do not understand the law where it comes to self-identification. We are providing clarity there. We have engaged with numerous LGBT groups, but the fact of the matter is that many of them support self-ID. That is not this government's policy. Stonewall does not decide the law in this country. Whatever it is that people want to campaign on, we will listen and we will hear. But we have been very clear about this. We have been very clear about this. And this is something that we are not budging on, and we are updating the law in accordance with government policy, and we will continue to do so.
All right, so she wants evidence-based, and she wants to decide based on democracy, not based on lobbyists. So that is shocking. And she said that. And so I want to applaud her saying that.
She deserves a round of applause from the
you heard all those
community.
Yeah.
You heard all those people going, here, here. I like that. Here,
Right.
here, here,
Yeah.
here.
Now, meanwhile, in the United States, I just want to turn quickly to the Republican debates that happened last night, because that is also an issue that is up for grabs in Republican politics, at least about parental rights and all of that. I hate to see it like just yelled about in a debate after we just saw like such a mature way to present this. But that's where we are right now.
Well, Megyn Kelly, to be fair, Megyn Kelly, she has been vehemently opposed to this. She's been speaking out about it on her show regularly about these trans surgeries and gender affirming care. So she tried to get a question in, I think, around that specific, question, calling up something from Chris Christie's past when he was governor, basically allowing for this to happen, for parents to go around, schools to basically go around the parents, and these kids could go and get gender affirming surgeries.
Yes, this was not maybe the most academic or evidence-based discussion of it, but at least it's on the table. But mostly it just was a shouting match. I would like to see us move more towards something like this. But we've seen in the United States that trans activists have said that gender affirming care would never pass any kind of study or standards-based tests or any kind of academic research, because there is no proof that gender affirming care resolves gender dysphoria or makes anybody better or less anxious or anybody's body more healthy. There's no research about that. It hurts. It hurts a lot. And anxiety and dysphoria persists. So we don't have that discussion yet. We have had hearings about it. We showed you some in the United States yesterday. But here's how it played out, at least on a debate stage. It's a bit wilder.
Here's my follow-up question. You talk about parental rights. Let's talk about them. When you were governor in 2017, you signed a law that required new guidelines for schools dealing with transgender students. Those guidelines required schools to accept a child's preferred gender identity, even if the minor's parents objected.
Not true.
And it said that there is no duty for schools to notify parents if their son or daughter changes their gender identity, allowing this serious issue to remain a secret between the school and a child. How is any of that pro-parental rights?
By the way, that's simply not true.
You're doing what you accuse me of, Chris. It is absolutely true.
That's simply not true. That's simply not true. That law was put into effect in 2018 and regulated in 2018 after I was out of office.
You mandated the guidelines.
No, we did not, Megyn. We did not issue those guidelines, and you're wrong about that. Simply wrong. I have stood up each and every time.
So I think if this is one issue that's disqualifying, it's this one.
I stood up every single time for parents to be able to make the decisions for their minor children.
But parents...
Every single time, parents should make those decisions. And by the way, you know what? Every once in a while, parents are going to make decisions that we disagree with. But the minute you start to take those rights away from parents, you don't know that slippery slope, what rights are going to be taken away next, and what's going to be focused on.
As a parent, you do not have the right to abuse your kids. This is cutting off their genitals. This is mutilating these minors. These are irreversible procedures, and this is something that other countries in Europe, like Sweden, once they started doing it, they saw it did incalculable damage. They've shut it down.
Yeah, exactly. So it's child abuse. Why do we have like child protective services then, right? We have laws in place to protect children. So you mean to say that you have nothing to do with parents, and if they abuse their children? Like, I don't want, he was talking to him, he was conflating different. Yeah, I give parents the right to choose the school they send their kids to. That's different from, forcing children to get some sort of a transgender surgery. I mean, that's ridiculous. Go ahead, David.
Well, I was going to say, and now Child Protective Services will take your child if you don't mutilate them.
In California, yes, especially.
God.
Yeah.
Oh.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let us know what you think of this. Like I said, I was riveted by this MP, and she got herself, well, I already was following her on Twitter, so maybe you want to do the same. I'm not telling you, but let us know what you think. We have more news to get to. We're going to, coming up, talk about this new UFO Disclosure Act, whether or not it's a step forward or a step back. We have a guest on to break that down. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at Lear Capital, because it's no secret, if you're tuned in, you know that experts are predicting a recession heading our way, further layoffs, and the government is ready to print more money for whatever, further devaluing the U.S. dollar. While last year was terrible for most investors, 2023 could be even worse unless you were smart and invested in gold. You guys, have you seen gold rallying this week?
Hit an all-time high.
It is crazy town. And so I hope you've been listening when we've suggested that you look into investing in precious metals, because it's working out so far, let me tell you. Lear can help you get started purchasing gold or any precious metals, or converting part of your IRA or 401k into a gold and silver IRA. Call Lear Capital today at 800-613-3557 or go to learredacted.com. Again, we're not certified financial experts, but we've been playing this metals game because of the increasing unstable geopolitics. And so Lear Capital, they are the experts and they will help you. So right now, if you buy 1 ounce of gold, Lear Capital is giving away a free ounce of silver. That's incredible. Literally free silver that you can keep or sell immediately. It's yours. There are a lot of gold companies to choose from, and Lear Capital has over 25 years experience and thousands of 5-star reviews, and a risk-free guarantee that gives you 24 hours to review your purchase. So Lear Capital is a top choice when buying metals, especially gold and silver. So call them at 800-613-3557 or go to learredacted.com to get your free gold and silver guide. Again, go to learredacted.com or call 800-613-3557.
Well, a major breakthrough or a major setback in the UFO disclosure, the UAP disclosure Act? You be the judge. Last night, Congress approved a final UFO bill that they will vote on and then send back to the Senate before it goes off to the president's desk for a signature. This is the UAP Disclosure Act, which has been bundled in as part of a defense spending bill. Some are calling it a major breakthrough. Some are saying it's a big setback. We should probably even change the name of it to something else because it's now really watered down. Well, let's ask Dr. Michael Salla, who's been pouring through this new version of the bill, to give us his assessment of this. Dr. Salla, at the beginning of last year, I think we were really excited that while there are some rumblings that Congress is going to do something with a lot of teeth in it, they're going to hold a lot of these black book projects to account. They're going to shine a light on them. The American people should see how many billions of dollars are being spent on these off the books programs. We're going to be able to catalog these, and the president will have to be made aware of it. The American people will have to be made. It sounded like, wow, we were going to get a lot of something here. And then last night, I don't know. It doesn't look like it's going to be as strong. What is your take going through these documents?
Well, it definitely is a disappointment for those that were wanting there to be a controlled disclosure of the whole UAP or UFO phenomenon, where all the records possessed by government agencies, corporations, would be made available to the American people at least 25 years after they were created, if not earlier than that. That the original provision, the original idea was to create a review board within the National Archives that would have subpoena power, that would report to the president, that would have 9 people that would be able to dig in to these records, whether they're in government agencies or whether they're in corporations, using the power of eminent domain, and to then eventually release that to the public. All that is gone in what has been passed. What has been passed is not a disclosure act insofar as UFOs are going to be revealed to the American or world public. It's really the creation of a UAP records collection in the National Archives, where all government agencies will be required to hand over whatever UAP records that they have to the National Archives, to the archivist, and any party that is getting funds from the Department of Defense or from the US government for any special access program that involves UAPs, that they can be denied funding if they do not disclose that to the relevant committee within the Senate or the House of Representatives. So in a way, that's not all that different to what already exists under the FOIA program and under required reporting mechanisms today.
So I understand. Yeah. So it's just, okay, just another nice name for it, but it's really much of the same we already have today. Just going through some of what Curious Explorer had posted up and summarized nicely on Twitter or X, that it requires the Department of Defense, to get a clean audit by 2028. Whatever that means. The Gillibrand Amendment prohibits funds from being used on any UFO program unless disclosed to congressional leadership and Intel and Armed Services Committee. I thought that part really stood out to me. So the Gillibrand Amendment seems to live on here. Is that significant?
Well, on paper, it appears to be significant because it looks as though, well, any corporation, because that's really where these UAP programs exist today. I mean, they're the ones that are studying any retrieved craft, any non-human intelligence. These corporations are studying these, putting together programs for reverse engineering those. So those are the things that the public would really want to know about. But the Gillibrand Amendment appears to make it a requirement that they report this and if they don't report it, then they can lose funding. But the problem here is that they're going to be reporting it to the relevant committees in the House of Representatives or the Senate, typically the Intelligence Committee or the Armed Services Committee, and they can do that under a number of provisions for special access programs. Like they can, there's different types of special access programs. There's unacknowledged special access programs or waived unacknowledged special access programs. In each case, you have more and more restrictions on who knows about it. So on paper, this sounds good, but in effect, a corporation that is working on a reverse engineering of a captured non-human spacecraft, they can report what they're doing in the context of a waived special access program, but that means that others down the food chain, like people like Congressman Tim Burchett, I mean, they don't have a look into this. It's only the people like Mike Rogers and Mike Turner who head these committees, or the leaders that are going to be informed. But even then, they can't take notes or anything. So on paper, it looks good, but I mean, the effect is going to be very little can actually be achieved.
One thing stands out to me is that it puts the onus on the secrecy holders to label, to be responsible. I found that interesting, right? So if President Biden wants to say, make something secretive or not release certain documents because of for some reason, he would have to affix his name to that. And the American people could stand up at a press conference, if he ever holds one, and ask him, Mr. President, you withheld documents related to this particular incident or something. Can you explain why did you withhold that from the American people? So now it kind of puts the onus on the secrecy holders to put their stamp of approval on something too. That's big.
Well, there is this kind of provision within the UAP Records Collection Act that's now being created, or it's going to be passed. I mean, what we've had the committee report that resolved the differences between the House and Senate versions. That report was issued last night, and so now this is going to go to both the full House and the full Senate to be voted on. So it will be passed by both and then signed into law. So this is not, I think, going to lead to any great change in terms of how these UAPs are going to be eventually disclosed, especially when it comes to UAPs that are controlled or that these corporations are working on. I mean, this has been known for a long time that the meat of this UFO phenomenon, it's the corporations that hold the records, that hold the material, that hold the bodies, whereas the government agencies, it was learned, or the process was set up in the 60s and 70s, when the Freedom of Information Act was set up, that all of that would be moved out of the control of government agencies into the hands of corporations, because they could better hide the secrets. And so nothing within this act that's been passed is going to really change that.
Unfortunate. I'll get you out of here on this, Doc, which is what do you think is the biggest letdown in this? What was the I think the biggest thing you were hoping for that didn't make it into this final bill?
Well, the creation of this review board that would oversee a disclosure process, whereby there would be this 9-man board that would consult with the president on how much and how quickly to release all of the UFO records, both from government agencies and what was prized from the hands of corporations that are unwilling to share this. Because, I mean, the bottom line here, Clayton, is that you look at a corporation like Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, or Boeing. I mean, they've been sitting on these records for decades now, and they're very, very slow to kind of like do things with the whatever's been retrieved, because they operate under very heavy layers of secrecy. Whereas new companies like SpaceX, I mean, they could, if they got their hands on these technologies, I mean, they could very quickly develop breakthroughs, innovation. I mean, that's exactly what Elon Musk and SpaceX have been doing. They've been making these other corporations look like dinosaurs in terms of returnable or reusable rocket propulsion systems. So they could do the same with these with the debris of UFOs that have been secretly studied in these corporations. But now that's not going to happen. So people like Elon Musk, who maybe are very curious about this UAP phenomenon and want to know, well, if there's any debris, can I have a look at it? Under this act that's been passed, I mean, he's not going to get a look into that. Or at best he can hope for is that there's going to be something in the National Archives in terms of records describing some of the sightings that have been made, but nothing in terms of what the corporations have in their possession. And that's I think the big loss here from the original version of the UAP Disclosure Act, that corporations previously under the power of eminent domain would have had to surrender the debris or the records that they had to this 9-person review board. But now that doesn't exist.
Great summation of what's in and what's out of this. Dr. Michael Salla, thank you so much. We'll be watching now as this goes to the full Congress for a vote, and then what the final bill will be before it hits the president's desk. I'm sure there'll be a lot of glad handing and applause and clapping among these members of Congress, because we did get some pieces of this, but it is a massively watered down version of what I think you and I and a lot of the American people had hoped for. Certainly a lot of people in the UFO community had been hoping for. Dr. Salla, great to see you. Thanks, as always, for your insights.
Thanks, Clayton.
Thanks so much, Dr. Salla. And I think, at the heart of all of this is what Dr. Salla and others have been saying over the past 24 hours, that, well, Congress got a chance. They had a chance, and it looks like they probably blew it. And then what is next is catastrophic disclosure. Now, many of you might be saying, I actually saw a bunch of you in the chat saying this as well, that catastrophic disclosure is probably coming next. And you're right about that. Catastrophic disclosure would be, okay, we gave you the chance to do it. And so what we're going to do now is show you that we are here and this is real. And we're going to show up. There's going to be some massive amount of U.S. members of the military coming forward, or some sort of a giant craft that arrives. That there's some sort of massive, you cannot put this genie back in the bottle, catastrophic disclosure kind of a moment, that all of these military industrial complex, neocons, and all of these deep state people that don't want you to know about, that genie will be out of the bottle. They will not be able to put it back, and all of those people will be screwed. And I would love for that moment to happen. Anyway, I think it would be an amazing moment.
Well, it just pisses me off that that's probably the only way we will ever actually find out. It's going to have to be somebody just going, look, here
Yeah.
it is.
Fine. Finally.
'Cause
Here it is. Yeah.
Finally. Yep.
All of the people that are out there like, oh, it's a distraction. That's BS. It's fake, whatever. Fine. Just put it out there. So all of those people will finally say, like, holy shit, I was wrong. Like, okay, here it is. I think that's what we're heading towards. Let us know in the comments what you guys think. Is that what we're heading towards?
All right, well, that's going to do it. But before we go, I want to wish the Foster boys happy birthday because today's Philip's birthday and David's tomorrow. We don't have a live show tomorrow, so everybody please wish the boys. They are brothers, but not Irish twins, right? You guys are a couple years.
No,
apart.
we're 6 years apart.
Oh, okay. So, but both born on December, in early December. It's also my father's birthday today, so happy birthday to all the December babies who get their presents wrapped in Christmas wrap.
That's
Hope
me.
you don't mind. Yeah.
I know.
So I hope you both have wonderful. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, growing up, I got to celebrate my birthday on David's birthday the majority of the time.
Oh,
yeah, because they're like, well, we were going to do yours, but we're going to do his tomorrow, so we'll just do them on the same day. You guys will go out to dinner and we'll celebrate the same thing.
Did you at least get to pick what the cake flavor or anything?
Was it one cake?
I don't remember.
One
I don't
cake
really
and
like
a
cake
split.
either.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
happiest birthday to the both of you. We couldn't do the show without you. We adore you.
Thank you.
I hope the chat room shows you lots of love too.
Well, happy birthday to you guys. And thank you guys all for joining us this week. We really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for subscribing, being a part of our community. And we will see you back here on Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. 4 p.m. Eastern time, we are live. Have a great weekend, everyone.